So I brought my notebook because of it. I have a number of questions, some of which are mine and some of which are friends. But I want to thank Jerry for your insatiable curiosity and your allowing of Esther to come along for the ride. And Esther, obviously, I want to thank you for eventually becoming so open and agreeing to be Abraham's vehicle into the physical at this time.
She does a good job at that. She gets out of the way.
So I'm looking for some clarity. I've heard you talk about frivolous, non-physical beings with respect to the Ouija board and playing that game.
Every thought that you've ever thought still exists. Every thought still exists. So let's talk about this. And we haven't said this before in this way either, so this is worth making a note of. So here you are, you're having experiences and you're thinking thoughts. You know what you don't want, you know what you do want. So think about what we've been saying. Oh, this is very good. You're really going to like this. So you know what you don't want, you know what you do want. And you now know where you know what you do want thoughts go, don't you? You know what you do want thoughts go into this vibrational escrow. It becomes the future experience. It becomes the beingness of the source energy. Where do you think that I know where I don't want thoughts go? They don't go into the vibrational escrow. They're not eternally held, but they are part of the consciousness of the physical beingness that surrounds you, and every thought that has ever been thought still exists, and law of attraction is going to cause a coalescing of those thoughts. And so when we talk about the non-physical energy that you have access to, as Esther receives Abraham, she can feel by the swelling of love within her that she's receiving something that's coming from over there. But when you're playing with a Ouija board, you could tap into some of that if that is your vibrational place and intention. In other words, because you can read a book means you could read a book like this, which in our opinion would be of value to you to read it since we wrote it. But since you can read this language, you could pick up books that are not necessarily to your advantage. And just because you can read it doesn't mean that it's necessarily a good thing for you to read. Well, people who can tap into vibration and read it, just because you can read vibration doesn't mean that some of the vibration that you tap into is necessarily good for you. But the difference between picking up a book and reading it is that you could pick up any book and read it. Somebody could hand you a book, but if you feel an aversion to it, that means that book and you are not on the same vibrational wavelength. So sometimes people can get into such a chronic pattern of feeling despair that then they become a vibrational match to thought forms. They're non-physical in the sense that they haven't materialized yet, but they are still a real and viable experience. And that's why the experiences that are scary to people, that's why they think that there are paranormal experiences that are evil in nature. Nothing can assert itself into your experience. Every bit of it, you must be a vibrational match to it in order to experience it. But you could be a vibrational match to unwanted things, and that's all that is.
I want to interrupt you just to get something on here. You said earlier how Esther had tremendous fear of the Seth books.
She was afraid of the supernatural. She was afraid of the Ouija board. She was afraid of the devil.
Okay, and then you're saying, so trust our feelings. And so had we trusted that feeling, her feelings instead of mine, we wouldn't have had all this experience,
when we talk about that, it's a really important clarification.
So, reason to interrupt.
Well, when we talk about...
Actually, I wanted to talk.
When we talk about trusting your feelings, that statement must only come after your understanding that there is source energy and that good feels good. In other words, if you feel fear as you sit on a park bench because you fear that there's a monster in the bushes, whether there's a monster in the bushes or not, we think it's good to get away from the bench. Because your belief that there's a monster in the bushes and you're sitting on the bench holds you in a vibrational place where you're allowing into your experience less than the goodness that you want.
So we could say that in the fact that I didn't push the books on her and didn't take them in the bedroom as she requested, and I just continued to enjoy them, And the only thing I presented to her were some points that I thought were valid
It turns out
in improving life. Then her fear went away, but it was fear of something that didn't necessarily be afraid of, but she was afraid of.
there was nothing in those books that was not a vibrational match. Nothing in those books, as Esther received them from you, would have made her feel fear. Her fear was about what she'd been told about things like that. So now let's talk about this. So the thought that gave her fear was that there are bad things lurking that have the power to assert themselves into her experience.
Like The Exorcist or something, a movie it was here.
So that as that fear was within her, as she felt that fear, what that fear is telling her, a feeling that she can trust, is that that thought is not in alignment with her greater knowing. That fear doesn't mean that those things are valid. It means that that thought is not a vibrational match to the well-being that she seeks. And that's why your clarification is important, because when we say trust your feelings, we mean once you understand what your guidance system is. This is the thing that is so interesting to us about this movement relative to law of attraction. People like the idea that their thoughts create, and they like the idea of being able to think thoughts deliberately and attract to them. But when you leave out the two vibrational aspects that are playing off one another, when you leave out the part of it that you are source energy and that law of attraction is responding to this ever-expanding part of you, then you leave out the guidance system. And when you leave out the guidance system, then you don't know where you're at within any thought or any creation. You can't tell where you are. There's no way to know if you're moving toward or away from something that you want or who you are.
Thank you.
So we'll clarify that more carefully. When we say trust your feelings, we mean once you've come into awareness that you are more than you know in this physical body, and once you are consciously aware that that non-physical part of you is the expanded version of that which you are, and once you've tasted through meditation or appreciation the sweetness of that alignment, and you use that as your standard, you use that as your placeholder, you use that as your indicator of what you are reaching for, then everything else will fall into alignment for you. So much so that when someone says to you, you are a good person, and you hear it, you will feel the resonance of it because your source agrees. But when someone says, you are inappropriate, you have touched someone in a way that is offensive, and you feel that gut-wrenching discord within you because they're activating within you, or doing their best to, a feeling of unworthiness that the source within you does not feel. When you feel that, it lets you know that this thought is discordant to who you are. And the reason that we so want to talk about the thought is because everything is about the thought. There is nothing that you live or don't live. There's nothing that comes to you or that you hold away from you. There's nothing that you experience that is outside the thoughts you think. The thoughts you think equal the vibration you offer that law of attraction responds to, that brings all of the reality to you that you live. Everything that comes is about the thoughts you think. So when you get it, that the larger part of you lives and loves, and you are living and not loving, and you feel the discord of that, then you know what to do. Find a way of loving. Well, there are a lot of ways of loving. You can not look at this thing that you're having a hard time loving. That helps. Jesus said, turn the other cheek. That helped a lot. But there it is again. If you turn your cheek enough, you'll deactivate what you don't want because you've activated something else, and then that stops coming. Anything that's showing up is coming in response to something that's active within you. So now, as you understand that your guidance is showing you, there are two active parts of you: the source, love, God, active part of you, and the human, physical, now what I'm focused upon, part of me. When the two come together, life is sublime. When the two come together, you are source energy in this physical body, just like you knew you would be. Any deviation from that does not feel good. That's the guidance system that you can trust. Good time for a segment of lunch. Is it easy to think? Is it easy to feel? Is it easy to tell how the thought you think feels? Is there any more to it than that? Have we sort of ground this into the ground today? In other words, we're making far too much of all of this, aren't we? Find something to be happy about and focus on it and be happy. Then find something else to be happy about and focus on it and be happy. Then find something else to be happy about and focus on it and be happy. If you find yourself, by default, not watching what you're doing, stumbling onto something that doesn't feel happy when you focus upon it and don't feel happy until you can't stand not being happy, and then make a decision to focus upon something that feels happy and then focus upon it and be happy. That's pretty much it.
Yep, 30 seconds.
Whether there's nothing more that we would give you, any of you, that will take you into greater clarity than what we've already achieved. We want to say to you that we found this particular gathering not only interesting, but highly productive in that we moved into places that we have not been before. This was a really powerful seminar where the nitty-gritty of your questions took us into places that we have not been before. Having said that, we want to leave you with something that we can feel has arisen as a result of the time that we've spent together today, and that is we are all making too much of all of this. In other words, thoughts create, and you have the ability to direct your thoughts. And as you direct your thoughts, your feeling about the thoughts that you're directing will improve. And if you will let your life be about reaching for the best fitting thought that you can find from wherever you are, the universe will continue to deliver to you more opportunities not only to expand, but more opportunities to revel in the deliciousness of what you have lined up. If we were standing in your physical shoes, we would vacillate between two intentions, and they are very simple intentions. The first one would be, I want to feel good as much as I can feel good, which means I'm going to pay more attention to how I feel, and I'm going to more deliberately guide my thought. And the second intention that we would leave this gathering with, which really falls on the basis of what we've just said, is, I am determined. And think of the power of the word determined. I am determined to tell the story, all stories, the story of my life, the story of my wishes, the story of my past, the story of my present. I am determined to tell my story of how I want it to be. So if people say, how have you been? Your answer is irrelevant. As people say, hi, how are you? The answer is irrelevant. Not that you're irrelevant. My story about how I am is irrelevant. My story about how I have been is irrelevant. You want to train people to say, hi, where are you going? Say to your friends, new plan. Hi, where are you going? Hi, what's up? Hi, tell me the good news. In other words, the new story, 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 because the old story is really old news. And the old story, you can't tell the old story and the new story at the same time. And the old story is counterproductive to what's in vibrational escrow. That's the new story. That's where you are. So begin telling the new story. And you'll get better and better at telling it. Tell it not because you're trying to use it to get to where you want to be. Tell the new story for the joy factor in the telling of it. So your friends are going to come to know you as the one who is always happy about explaining where you're going. It's the best teaching that you could ever do. Words don't teach. You teach to the clarity of your example. We have enjoyed this interaction immensely. There is great love here for you. And as always, we remain eternally and blissfully incomplete.